hope this finds you well. It's Nikki with Thrive Bodywork in Alexandria, and today I want to talk about letting the foot be the foot. Oh my God. We misunderstand our feet and we take them for granted so badly, and they are literally the foundation of our body. And if they're not working properly, literally nothing else I do north of the feet will stick. So I have a lot of people that come in with neck problems and jaw problems and sort of shoulder problems. The first thing I do is look at their feet. And usually within the first or second session, by for sure the second session, I'm spending a ton of time on their feet, so that any work that I do north of the feet will stick and be able to be taken. So, okay, first of all, this is my foot, and I nicked myself shaving today, so my lovely Band-Aid. So first of all, I want to talk about the organization of the body. We are organized kind of like a checkerboard. And now when I say the word stable, I mean relative to, okay? I don't mean immobile. But basically, we're born with very mobile toes, what are supposed to be pretty mobile toes. And I've worked very hard to get mine to be as mobile as they are, okay? A relatively stable foot, very mobile ankle joint, okay? Stable knee, it really only should move in one direction. It's a hinge joint, right? Very mobile hip, stable spine. Now we need our spines to be mobile, but they should be stable when we're operating our hips and then our very mobile shoulders, okay? So there's a difference between having a spine that allows for mobility and a spine that can be also stable. So don't super worry about that. Just know that in a lot of movements, we really want the spine to be able to stay supple but stable in order to allow the shoulders and the hips to be mobile, okay? Now, I want you to do me a favor and just point and flex your foot, okay? Just like this, like we did in elementary school. Now, if you do nothing else, if you listen to nothing else that I babble about in any of these videos, this one is worth your time and money, okay? I want you to imagine that I've painted a dot right here on the bottom of your heel bone. It's called the calcaneus, okay? And I want you now to move your foot by moving the dot. So you're gonna make the dot go like you wanna touch the wall in front of you, and then I say suck the dot back up into your body, okay? And then move the dot out, and then suck the dot back in. And feel how that changes where the movement comes from, which joint that movement initiates from. You should feel that it moved up into your actual ankle, okay? When we're told as kids to point and flex our toes, we do. But what that does is it hypermobilizes right here inside the foot, basically the tarsal-metatarsal junction, metatarsal-tarsal junction. That is not supposed to really be hypermobilized that way. So that's very unsafe. And so the body, in its infinite wisdom, trying to sort of minimize the damage, it will shut down or immobilize the two mobile joints on either side of it. So the toes demobilize and the ankle demobilizes. Now that would be relatively okay if we were just sitting on the ground, pointing and flexing our toes all day. But we now have to get up and walk around. And ankle mobility, proper ankle mobility, is an integral part of walking. And when that's immobile, our knees have to take up the slack. And so we go from being able to sort of take a step where we change the ankle mobility and then our knees track straight to we start kind of walking like this. And I'll have a whole walking lesson at some point. But our knees will hypermobilize in order to pick up the slack of the now immobilized ankle joint. Well, that's not safe. So then the supposed to be mobile hip demobilizes, which would be, relatively okay if we were only ever just walking, but we insist on bending over and picking things up. And now when we're supposed to do that at our hip socket, at our hip joint, Well, that's immobile. And so now we do it at our spine, right? We'll bend at our belly button and then pick, and then reach over. And now the opposite of that is, again, these small spinal muscles whose job it is not to get our heavy rib cage out of gravity. It's our big glutes job, but they weren't engaged properly, right? They weren't mobilized properly. And so they can't do their job, which is one of the reasons that a lot of people, when they're bending over and sort of doing squats, they say, oh, I can't engage my glutes. It's like, well, because you didn't move your glutes, right? You didn't, this is moving the glutes, this is moving the spine. But anyway, that's a tangent. Back to the foot. Okay, so we want to be able to move that heel bone. The second part of foot anatomy and a really important piece that people forget about, we are very, very, very obsessed with our arches, right? People will come and say, I have a collapsed arch, or I have an overly pronounced arch, or, arch. And I'm just like, well, there are 3 arches, and the one that you give a shit about, the medial arch, is the least important of the 3. It's the follower arch. The other 2 arches are what are called the transverse arch that goes here underneath the toes, and then the lateral arch. That's the keystone arch that goes kind of here. And what happens is that lateral arch is really what gets collapsed. Everybody's foot kind of starts to roll out like this, and we put all of our weight on our smallest 2 toes. That also puts all of our center of gravity through our leg and our foot on the outside of it. And so our knees will kind of splay. And then that'll go right up into the hip, and it'll actually cause a ton of low back compression because we're only putting center of gravity on one half of our leg. And so our spine kind of freaks out, and our leg isn't taking our weight, and our spine has to, and just many, many, many things go awry, okay? So in order to kind of bring that back into alignment, what we do is we essentially reconstruct in structural integration, we reconstruct this lateral arch, and what that then does is allow this also collapsed transverse arch that goes under the toes to kind of dome out, and that creates a spring in the foot. And when we go to take a step, we can bring our heel up evenly, and then our toes are nice and splayed, and there's literally like a spring that comes in each step. And it allows not only us to push off with a lot more ease, we can jump a lot higher and all of that, but it keeps the entire foot evenly on the ground. So, my yogis and stuff like that, your yoga instructor will always tell you to put, 3 or 4 points of contact. So what they mean is under this toe, and then either 1 or 2 points on your heel, evenly distributed, because what that does is allow for the whole leg then to be evenly engaged and taking your weight on keeping things out of the spine. And I know a lot of this kind of doesn't necessarily make sense until you feel it inside your body after I've reconstructed your foot and ankle joint. But trust me when I say, if your feet are not where they belong, nothing else matters. So if you can't get on my table, I want you really to be thinking about moving that heel bone and getting mobility back inside the ankle joint. I want you to really think about electrifying the fence of the whole leg and really trying to track that ankle nice and smoothly, okay? And I also want you to work on being able to mobilize your toes. And again, this took me a very long time to be able to do. So, don't worry if it takes you I'm talking months of just, anytime there's kind of a commercial break, this is what I'm doing in order to individuate my toes like that. But it really does matter. And if you have any questions, let me know. If you are in the DMV area, I'd love to get you on my table and prove to you the value of having your foot and the 3 arches balanced, and the flexibility, the mobility, the safe mobility that comes into your legs, and the decompression that comes into your spine as a result. So www.thrivealexandria.com, and I'll either hope to see you on my table or have a great day. Thanks so much for listening.